resident and non-resident, and within resident there are permanent resident and non-permanent resident. So normally a person who is living in Japan for 1 year or more is considered as a resident, and and if he has been in Japan for a period of 5 years or less within the last 10 years, then he will be considered as non-permanent resident. And if he has been in Japan for 5 years or more in the preceding last 10 years, he will be considered as a permanent resident. Any person who is not meeting the above requirements is classified as a non-resident. And in Japan, the income has to be reported on the payment basis or receipt basis and not on the accrual basis. So that way it is little different to India, where it goes on the accrual basis. And similar to the PAN number in India, we have the My number in Japan, which will be used for all the tax reporting purposes, either by you as an individual or by your employer on behalf of you. Coming to the scope of the taxable income, depending on your residency status in Japan, the taxable income which you have to offer for tax in Japan will differ. So if you are a permanent resident in Japan, you have to offer your global income for tax in Japan. Global income means income and within Japan and income and outside Japan. Whether received in Japan or received outside Japan, does not matter. So you have to declare your global income for tax in Japan. However, in the case of non-permanent resident, only the domestic source income and foreign source income paid in Japan or deemed remitted to Japan need to be declared. And in the case of non-resident, only the domestic source income needs to be declared for tax in Japan. And taxation methods in Japan, we have three types of taxation methods. Aggregate taxation, where different types of income are clubbed together and to arrive at the taxable income. This actually results in the increase of the tax slab. You also have the separate self-assessment taxation, where the aggregation or clubbing is not done, and it is considered as a separate source of income on which the tax is levied. And other than that, you also have a separate taxation at source, wherein the TDS generated from the income is equal to your tax liability, which means that you need not declare it again for the taxation in your final tax return. So this is the types of income and the taxation methods. For example, real estate income, whatever income you are deriving by leasing of your land, building or apartment or flat, that will be considered as aggregate taxation. And interest income, whatever interest income you are generating on investments outside Japan, that will be considered as aggregate taxation. Similarly, the dividend income also. And the employment income also will be considered as aggregate taxation. Only the capital gains arising on sale of apartment, building, land, and shares will be considered as separate self-assessment taxation. And also the retirement income, which normally many Japanese companies have the policy of paying the retirement allowance when you leave the company, or the lump sum pension withdrawal, that will be considered under as a separate self-assessment taxation. And for all the employees working in Japan, wherever they have an employment income, there is an employment deduction which is equal to standard deduction in India. And this is a table, where you can see the left one is the valid till 2019, and the right one is applicable from 2020. As you can see, there's a marginal changes made by the government from 2020. Basically, they have reduced the deduction to be given to the employees. As a result, the taxable income will go up, and also the tax liability. So the maximum impact which is there is around 250,000. There is a decrease in the deduction available to the employees who are earning more than 10 million and above. Other than this, you also have deductions for other contributions, whatever you are paying from your salary. For example, I think most of you are part of the social security system in Japan, paying the health insurance and employee pension and labor insurance. Whatever contributions you made as an employee, that will qualify for the deduction from the gross salary. Apart from that, if you have taken any life insurance premiums or long-term medical care insurance and other insurance policies in Japan, subject to the cap of 1,20,000 yen, it can be allowed as a deduction. Similarly, if you have purchased a house and you are paying the earthquake insurance, that also will also qualify for deduction, subject to 50,000 yen per month, per annum. Sorry. And medical expenses, if you have incurred any medical expenses in the year exceeding 1 lakh, the amount incurred in excess of 1 lakh, that also will qualify for deduction. However, for this, you need to do the filing by yourself with the tax office. The company will not be able to help you in the year-end adjustment process. If you have made any donations to any approved organizations, that also will qualify as a deduction. However, depending upon the type of donation you have made, you can either choose to claim deduction or take a tax credit, whichever is beneficial to you. That decision you can choose. Other than this, you also have an exemptions. For example, as a taxpayer, you have a basic exemption of 3,80,000. This actually increased to 4,80,000 from 2020. That means that in the employment deduction, there was a decrease of 2,50,000. However, the exemption increased by 1 lakh. So net effect is 1,50,000 decrease from the employee perspective. Other than that, children who are less than 16 years of age, they do not qualify as a deductions, because if they are staying along with you in Japan, should be receiving the child allowance from the board office. Hence, there is no special deduction available for them in the tax law. And if you are, if your spouse is working or she is a housewife, based upon her income and your income, you can get a deduction for her in your tax return, depending upon the criteria. For example, if your salary after employment deduction is 9 million or less, and if her income is zero, then you can get the entire tax deduction of 3,80,000 as a spouse. However, as and when your income keeps on increasing, or her income keeps on increasing, the deduction amount for her in your tax return will come down. And if your salary is more than 10 million or gross salary is 12.2 million, then the deduction will be zero. Similarly, if you have any dependents, overseas dependents staying outside of Japan, and if you are financially supporting them for their livelihood in the place where they are living, depending on their age, you can claim a deduction subject to the condition that you provide the remittance statement and the relationship proof documents to your employer or to the tax office. So if the dependent whom you are supporting is less than 70 years of age, the deduction amount is 3,80,000, and if he is more than 70 years of age, it will be 4,80,000. However, if the person is between the age of 19 and 23, the deduction amount is 6,30,000. Basically, with the objective that during this age he will be attending the university, and there will be additional cost. Hence, the deduction amount is little bit higher. And the qualifying family definition is given under the family law of Japan. Basically, it will cover 6 generations from your side and 3 generations from your spouse side. And children 16 years and above, if they are not falling under the specific dependents category, they also qualify for deduction for 3,80,000 yen. And this is the housing tax credit. Recently, there have been many Indians are buying houses in Japan, either apartments or independent houses. So for this, normally they are either borrow a loan from the bank, and the bank will finance that purchase. So there's a, I mean, benefit available under tax law if at all you meet all these conditions. First condition is that you should be staying in that house at the end of each year, and you should occupy this property within 6 months of the completion of construction or acquisition, and your gross salary should not be more than 30 million JPY, and the area of the house should be 50 square meters and above, and the loan period should be for 10 years or more, and during the year of purchase and 2 years before and after, you should have, I mean, you should not have taken the benefit of long term capital gain, and this benefit is available for a period of 10 years from the year of purchase. And the first year you need to do the tax return filing directly by yourself with the tax office. However, from second year you can submit all the documents to your employer, who will do the needful required. The tax credit amount is either 1% of the outstanding loan balance amount or 4 lakh, whichever is lower. However, if the amount of loan is more than the cost of the apartment or the building, then it will be limited to 1% of the cost of the building or apartment and not the loan. Some people may be aware there's a concept called company leased accommodation, wherein your employer makes a contract with the landlord and he pays the rent and he recovers some nominal amount from your salary. That basically is a tax saving measure, which some companies do that. However, for that to be done, first thing is that your employer needs to enter into contract with the landlord, and he needs to make the monthly rental payments, and he needs to recover a nominal rent of around 5 to 10% of the rent amount from your salary post tax, and this balance 90 to 95% of the rent, that will be considered as a non-taxable in your hands, provided there's an agreement to this between you and your employer in the employment contract. And in the case of director level of employees, the benefit will be 50 and 50. This exemption is only under the income tax law and resident tax law. So this will be considered as salary under the social security, and hence it will be considered for the premium calculation. Fursat Noze is one of the concept. Probably, I mean, many are interested, but actually, if you see the objective of Fursat Noze, it is like Fursato means our village or hometown, but most of us do not have any hometown or village in Japan, because we are, I mean, basically from outside Japan. But this many of our foreigners take advantage of this, and they contribute to the I mean any ward office or city which they like, depending upon what benefits they are going to get, and they take advantage of this, and in exchange for the contributions which they make, they receive in return some gifts or other things, which are not considered as taxable. If you see the logic here, under the income tax law, it will be considered as a donation, and that it will be eligible for deduction. However, under the resident tax law, it will be considered as a tax credit. So basically, if you are staying in one ward office as of 1st January 2020, normally you pay the resident tax to that ward office by making this donation to any city or ward office, whichever you like. So that tax revenue from the ward office where you are staying is getting transferred to the ward office where you are making the donations. But from my individual perspective, I feel that, for example, if you donate 100 and the non-deductible contribution is 2, so the net amount is 8. So you are getting the benefit of 6 under the income tax, and under the resident tax you are getting the benefit of 92. And if the value of the item which you are going to get in kind from the ward office to where you made the donation is more than 2, that means that you are getting that item either at a free cost or at a subsidized cost. So basically, I really do not understand why this scheme is introduced by the government, because I mean the objective is different, but the way it is currently used by many of the people, including Japanese, is different. So there's actually a loss of revenue to the ward office where you are staying because of this. These are the tax rate slab currently applicable for 2019 and also for 2020. If you see, it starts from 5% and goes up till 45%. However, if you see from the for the second slab onwards, there's a tax credit available. So hence, the effective tax percentage will be between 9.5 to 9.7 in the case of second slab. So for each slab, there is a tax credit available, and accordingly, the tax effective tax percentages will be little lower than what is mentioned on the left side. And I mean, this is the I see many cases where Indians buy the houses and they give it on rent and they generate a real estate income. So in such a case, that real estate income also need to be offered for tax in Japan by them. So I mean, this statement shows them what is the income what they have from real estate and what are the kinds of expenses which they can claim under the real estate income, and the balance will needs to be reported as part of the aggregate taxation along with salary and other employment income. And there are some people who normally work as a freelancers, and they don't have any employment contract with their employers. So they are freelancers. They work from their home or they work at the client site, but they don't have any employment contractual obligation with the person who is employing them. So in such a case, they have an option to claim some of the expenses which they incur by working from home. For example, some part of your house rent, if you have leased your premises, that can be claimed as a business expense. So the objective of putting this is that one. So salary and bonus, if at all you hired someone and got the work done, or rent of your premises, if at all you are working from home and using some part of your premises for your work. So normally around one third of the house rent is allowed as a deduction, and any travel expenses or business entertainment expenses which you have incurred in generating the revenue, that can qualify for the deduction, and the net income or loss will be the one which needs to be reported. So this is the sample tax computation under the aggregate taxation. So you have the gross salary and bonus, which is employment income. You have business income, you have real estate income, and salary after employment deduction. You have net business income or loss, and net real estate income or loss, and total income A. And then you have the deductions: social insurance premiums, earthquake insurance, spouse deduction, dependent deduction, basic deduction, total deduction, taxable income. And then on the taxable income, you calculate the tax liability, which is based on the rates what we discussed earlier. And from this tax liability, the housing tax credit, that 4 lakh or 1% of the outstanding loan balance, that will be deducted, and net amount will be the net tax liability. On the net tax liability, you have a 2.1% special reconstruction tax, which came into effect from 2012 because of the Fukushima. And this net tax liability plus special reconstruction tax will be your total tax liability. That will be compared with your withholding tax, either from your salary or other payments when it was deducted. And if at all you paid some advance tax, that also will be deducted, and the net will be the payable or the refund. So in the case of, I think, people who are working in companies, they may be aware that every year at the beginning of the year, they give a declaration about the dependents to the employer. Based upon this information, the TDS is calculated, and the year-end adjustment is done in December, again based upon the information whatever you is given by you. So actually, the January to November, the TDS is deducted based upon only the gross salary, the social insurance contributions, and the taxable salary, and based upon taxable salary, the number of dependents. So the tax office has already prepared one table where it says that if the taxable salary is falling in this range, and if the number of dependents are this many, this is the TDS amount. So they have gone to that level to of minute details. So your employer just needs to follow the table and do the TDS as per that. And if your salary is less than 20 million JPY, you need not do any tax return filing if your employer has done the year-end adjustment in the month of December, and if you do not have any other source of income other than salary. If you have, you need to do the tax return filing by yourself with the tax office. And you can if at all your employer has not done the year-end adjustment for whatever is the reason, if it is a different tax return, you can file the tax return from the day one of the current year. And you normally taxes are due and payable by 15th of March, and you can always go back and file your tax returns for the last 5 years, excluding the current year. And many companies do offer the ESOPs to employees as a part of the employment contractual obligations. So ESOPs are also considered as employment income and are taxed at the time of vesting as employment income, and when you sell them, it is taxed as as a capital gain. And tax rate for non-residents is 20.42%, and they are not eligible for any deductions and exemptions which are otherwise applicable for residents. And this residential status of resident or non-resident, this will be determined by your employer based upon the information and the facts which is available to him at the time of you joining the company. If at all you came, first time to Japan from outside Japan. And as I said, permanent resident needs to offer his global income for tax in Japan. It may be possible that where in other countries of the same income, he would have paid some tax, either as a TDS or final tax liability. So a tax credit for the same can be taken in Japan while offering the same income for tax in Japan based upon the rules in Japan. However, the tax credit normally will not be obtained for the entire amount. It can be either in partial or nil. And those who are having business income or real estate income, they can also apply for blue tax return, and they will be eligible for an additional tax credit of 5,50,000 or 1 lakh, depending upon meeting the conditions. But the condition is that you need to maintain the proper books of accounts and the financial statements and submit them along with the tax return. So, and you need to maintain them for a period of 7 years. That is the condition which needs to be met. And I think most of the people who are part of the employee pension system in Japan. So when you leave Japan, you are eligible to claim the lump sum pension withdrawal and get a lump sum pension from the pension office based upon the rules of the pension office. This amount, whatever you have received as lump sum pension, will be considered as a retirement income. And based upon the number of years of contribution made by you, for each year of contribution, there is a 4 lakh deduction, and from the gross amount, this deduction will be reduced, and the net pension amount, 50 on the net pension amount, tax will be levied. In such a case, on the net pension amount, 50% on the 50% of the net pension amount, tax rate as per the resident tax slab will be applicable, and tax will be calculated. And mostly you should be getting a refund, because when they make the payment of the pension to you, they deduct a TDS of 20.42%. So which is as per the non-resident. However, since this will be considered as a resident income, and the tax will be calculated on the resident slab, so you will be getting a refund. For this purpose, you need to appoint some person as a tax agent in Japan, and he should do the tax filing on your behalf. and get the refund from tax office and share the same with you. And resident tax, I mean, the objective of resident tax is that normally use many free facilities wherever we are staying, for example, library or parks or roads, etc. So the objective is to fund this kind of facilities which we are using. And this is payable if you are there in Japan as of 1st January of that year. And it is payable on the previous year's income. For example, if you are there in Japan on 2021, 1st January, in the Ward Office records. So whatever income you have earned in 2020, on that income, the resident tax is payable from 2021 June to 2022 May. And the payment, normally what happens is that once the year-end adjustment is done by your employer, by 31st January of next year, your employer is going to file a report with the ward office wherever you are staying, based upon which the ward office calculates the resident tax and shares the information with your employer for deduction from the monthly salary. And in the case of self-employed individuals, they have to pay 4 times in a year. How there are some minor differences do exist between the income tax and resident tax rules. For example, the dependent deduction available under the income tax law is 3,80,000. However, under the resident tax law, it is only 3,30,000. So all this information will be applicable in one of the small document which ward offices shares with you through your employer, which contains all this information. Probably it will be only in Japanese, so you need to take some time to understand what is the content of that document. And the tax percentage is 10% of the taxable income. I think I have covered all the points probably. So I will be open to the questions. So I think that will take more time. So I mean request Gauri to ask the members to shoot out their questions.
Yeah, I am also seeing quite a few questions that is coming up. Okay, the first question that has come up is there a cap on number of dependents that can be added for deductions?
So there is no the objective. You have to understand the objective. Dependents means you are supporting that person financially for their basic livelihood in wherever they are living. Basic livelihood normally means food, clothing, and shelter. However, depending upon the necessity, it can be education or something else also. But the law does not say that you should only have this many dependents. But it says, I mean, you can claim dependent deduction if you have financially supported them. And first thing is that for the before you claim the person as a dependent, he should qualify as one of your family member. If he qualifies as your family member, then yes, you are eligible to claim that person as a dependent if you have supported him financially. But if he is not meeting the requirement, then I mean, you cannot claim as a dependent. For example, I am giving some money to a third person who does not have any relationship to me. Then he is not my family member. So I can, even though I supported him financially, I cannot get the tax benefit.
Okay. And there was one more question that is related to this. While sending money to your family members, due to relatives who have already shown as dependent, do you have any limit, or I mean, can we claim only for the amount that we have already sent to them?
So first thing is that the dependent deduction is a flat amount. So depending on the age, either it is 3,80,000 or 4,80,000.
Yeah.
And it does not have any relevance to the amount whatever you have sent or financially supported. So logically, if you think, for example, in India, for one person to live, at least maybe 10,000 rupees or 15,000 rupees is required.
Yeah.
For the basic necessities. So if you take the logic of 50,000 rupees per month, it will be 15,000 into 12, which will be 1,80,000.
Okay.
So 1,80,000 INR will be, depending on exchange rate, it can be 3 lakhs or 3,50,000 yen. So, I mean, if I send 5 yen or 1 yen or 5,000 yen, and if I want to claim that person as a dependent, then logically tax office should ask you question that look, you should support this person for the entire year for his livelihood in India.
Yeah.
And if you are only supported for part of the year, then he is not eligible. But yeah, but tax office in Japan does not have that bandwidth to go to that level of details. So even if you send 5,000 yen or 1 yen, currently based upon the document rules, they allow that person as a dependent.
Understand. Okay. Anything to add from your side, Kailash ji?
Virendrasan, I think the question is coming from: is there any maximum cap? They might be interested in knowing, can we they remit to their in-laws or something?
So that I already answered, right?
Yeah,
So
yes, answer.
family
Yes.
definition is family.
Yeah.
As long as the person is meeting the definition of family, he is eligible. If
And
he
the
is not meeting, then he is not eligible. So for the family definition, you need to look. I said right from the taxpayer angle, from the taxpayer side, it is 6 generations. From the
Yeah.
house side, it is 3 generations. So that flow chart is clearly available. So you just need to look into that flow chart and determine whether the person whom you want to support is falling into that or not. If he is falling, yes, he is eligible.
And I think the best document proof can be the passport, wherein in Indian passport, name of the parents and the spouse, everything is written.
Correct. That is a relationship proof document. But
Yeah.
currently we are talking about the who qualifies. For example,
Yeah. So I'm
parents,
saying after we
in-laws, brother, sister, or brother-in-law, or sister-in-law, or your uncle and aunt. So that
right.
kind of family definition is given in the family law. So
Right.
first thing is that the person should meet the requirement there. Then the documentation will come into picture. How we are going to prove the relationship between you and him.
Right.
Understand.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Then there is one more question that has come up. Okay. Before I go to the general question, we have a guest to ask the question directly to you. We have Suhas who has joined us. Over to you, Suhas. Suhas, you have some questions, please. You can ask them.
Yeah, good afternoon to the ICI team, and thank you for a very nice, informative presentation. So my question is, in a particular month, you get a salary and you also say you get a bonus, say it is in July or December. But when we see the deduction, they again deduct all the health insurance, then resident tax, etc., etc. So is there any way to avoid it? Is it compulsory or is it an oversight? How does this work?
So first thing is that in the same month, if salary and bonus are paid, both are considered separately. And for income tax, social security, health insurance, pension, employment, this one, employee pension, and labor insurance. Income tax, health insurance, employee pension, and labor insurance. These are the 4 which will be levied separately on both of them. As per the of course, income tax anyhow will be levied separately. That as per the rules of the tax law. However, regarding the employee pension, it is clearly mentioned in the pension law that if you pay a bonus, you need to take separately on that. Similarly, regarding the health insurance, depending upon what is agreed by the employer with the health insurance provider, it will be normally separate. Labor insurance anyhow will be separate because it is managed by the government. But normally it is separate. Salary and bonus are considered as separate, and that levy will be separate on both of them. Only thing is that resident tax will be only on salary. Resident tax will not be there on your bonus.
Okay, thank you.
In a month.
Just to add, you can enlighten with the maximum cap on the health insurance part.
So see,
And
okay. So for example, if in the case of pension, maybe that the base discount will go back to the base one. How these premiums are calculated? These premiums are calculated based upon your monthly salary, monthly fixed salary, which is reported by your employer to the respective agencies. For example, in the case of health, the employer is free to make a decision who will be the health insurance provider. For example, most of the IT companies in Japan, they go for association called IT Kempo. They make an agreement with them. they join that association, and the health insurance premiums are governed by that association. Otherwise, you have the provider of, for example, each ward office provides the same thing. However, the premiums may be different and the benefits will be different. And if you see, they have a premium table. If the salary is this much and this is the premium, so that kind of definition is already clearly given by the health insurance providers. Similarly, in the case of employee pension, for example, if your salary is 1 million JPY per month, you also, I think, as of today, you are paying around 59,000 contribution. But even the person who is having a salary of 6,50,000, he is also paying a same contribution of 59,000, because above some limit, there is no, it is not linked to a salary, because after 6,50,000, it is standard. Even if you are drawing 2 million also, the premium contribution is 59,000 only. Similarly, when you retire, the benefits whatever you are going to get are same as the person who got a salary of 6,50,000 yen. So it is not like that your salary is high, so you are paying high premiums. It is not the percentage of your salary or directly linked to your salary. And each provider has already clearly defined a table. If your salary is this much, this is the premium. So your employer just blindly goes by that table and deducts from the salary every month.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, can I have one more question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So, for example, in India, there are several exemptions like ATG, this G, that G, so that you can reduce your taxable income. So, all the facilities that you mentioned, that is like say earthquake insurance or any life insurance that we have taken. So, are these the only exemptions which are available? Is there any further way to kind of reduce your tax liability?
So yeah, so as long as you have taken any life insurance policy in Japan or earthquake insurance policy in Japan and paying premium in Japan, then that will qualify. But if for example, if I take a LSE policy in India and pay the premium in India, that will not qualify for deduction in Japan. So if whatever deductions I have mentioned here is mostly the deductions what is available. Other than that, we don't have any much deductions. But there is one more thing which I want to mention. Because of not having confidence on the Japanese pension system, many Japanese do go for the corporate pension system, which many providers do offer. So it is either called DC or defined contribution or a defined benefit. So they make an additional contributions that will qualify for the tax deduction. Same as your pensions contribution.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Unfortunately,
Suhas.
that tax exemption deductions are very limited in Japan as compared to India or maybe other countries.
Okay. Thank you. So we have another question come up. Okay. The question is, if a person works from January to December of particular year and leaves Japan by end of December and don't stay on the January 1st of the next year, will he still required to pay the resident tax?
So you should be smart enough to go to ward office and report that I will be leaving Japan on so and so date. So if you are already reported to ward office that I'm leaving Japan within December, and they will update the database, that means that as of 1st January 2021, you will not be in the database of the ward office wherever you are staying. That means that you are not liable to pay the resident tax on the 2020 income.
Okay. Then please provide example of how resident tax calculation is done. Let's say if CTC is 9 million. So how do we actually calculate?
Resident tax calculation is same as the income tax calculation. Only difference is the deduction available for the self and the dependents. For example, you have the gross salary of 9 million. From the gross salary of 9 million, you have the employment deduction. Then you have the salary of the after employment deduction. From the salary, whatever social insurance contributions you have paid, that will be deducted. And if your spouse qualify for the deduction, the spouse deduction you will have, and the basic deduction for you. And if at all you have some earthquake insurance premium or life insurance premium, that also will qualify. Then you get the taxable income, and on the taxable income, the 10% is levied.
Okay.
So the tax rate in the case of resident tax is flat, 10% of the taxable income. However, in the case of income tax, the slabs are different depending on your income.
Okay. Then the next question, that is, I don't understand the question though, but let me. What is the role of first year in Japan for a person on these kind of things like resident tax, etc.? So I don't understand the exact
So
meaning.
let me
If you
ask that
for example,
question.
if you have come to Japan in 2020, say November, you will not have any resident. Even let us take example, even if 2020 January also. I came to Japan first time in 2020 January. For the 2020 January, from January to December, I will not have any resident tax deduction from my salary. The reason is that I don't have. I was not in. I was not there in Japan in 2019, so I did not have any income in Japan in 2019, and I was not a resident as of 1st January 2020 in the records. Hence, my resident tax for the first year will be zero. So, on the income what I am going to earn in 2020 from January to December, I will, if I am there in Japan on 2021 January 1st, then I will pay the resident tax from June 2021 to May 2022.
Okay.
And in that case, just to ask, so Virender san, if I leave by March, say 21, right? Then how much tax I would need to pay?
March
That
21.
would, yeah, March 21. So I came on say 20th January 20. Okay, I was there from 20th January to next year till March 21. Okay, so the income was there for last 2020.
First, see, whatever income you had in 2020 from whatever is the period for the entire year, on that, since you are there in Japan on 1st January 2021, you are liable to pay the resident tax.
Right.
Only thing is that here there is a catch. Only thing is that the ward office calculates and sends the resident tax notices to your employer only by end of May.
Yeah.
So if you are leaving before that date, then your employer may always say that this person already left Japan, so I don't have a salary for him, so I cannot pay this. But I have recently came to know that the ward office is directly sending the payment notices to your address in India or other parts of the world, asking you to pay the resident tax because you were there in Japan on 1st January 2021. Of course, it is your liability to pay that. But if many people can ask a question, what happens if I don't pay? As long as you don't come to Japan, they cannot catch you. But once you come to Japan, they will track you down and they will make you pay plus the interest and the penalty.
Okay, so this is about Virendra's and tax liability. Now let's come on the tax payment part. Okay, so if I was there in June 2021, then I have and continue to for next 1 year, then I will pay in every monthly installment, right? My employer will deduct from my monthly salary. But if I leave in say July 21, then I would need to pay total amount, right? Whatever remaining amount, like 2 months I might have paid June and July, and remaining 10 months I have to pay in July. Employer will deduct the whole amount, balance amount from my salary from that in the month of leaving Japan, right?
In the last month of your salary, he is bound to deduct the remaining 10 months resident tax. Otherwise, he will be asked questions.
Yes. So, audience, please take care of this because I got many questions from this because this will give surprise at the end of leaving Japan. Yeah.
Yeah. And one question that has come now is, what is the minimum annual salary to get eligible for paying the tax?
Minimum eligible salary.
What should be? I mean, to what level of, if my salary is, say, for example, only just 100 man per year, so do I still need to pay the tax? I mean, there should be some slabs, right? Until this much, you don't need to pay tax.
But see, whatever tax slabs we have taken, that is only taxable income. Before that, there are many other deductions.
Yeah.
We have employment deduction, we have basic deduction, we have spouse deduction, we have dependent deduction. So unless we know all this information, you cannot really say what is the minimum amount.
So there is a formula of calculation of taxable income, your base salary, and then there are various deduction as explained by Veerendra San in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Then you tell, so your taxable income will be calculated. Say, for example, your income is 4 million yen, and there are deduction of 1 million. So then the taxable income would be 3 million. So then there are the tax slabs, and accordingly taxable income will be calculated, and then 10% resident tax will be applicable on the taxable income.
Okay, I mean, particularly because why this question has come is this is more of there are housewives who do part time, right? So for them to do a part time, I think I don't know whether I'm right. I have heard somewhere that until 103 man, you don't need to pay tax if your total annual income that you are going to earn through this is going to be less than 103 man. It's not taxable.
No,
Is that understanding correct?
No. First thing is that if your wife is working, she whether it is 1 yen or 0 yen, I mean, as long as she has some income,
Yep.
she needs to report it. And if the tax liability can be 0, but the tax return needs to be filed. If the employer is not doing the final tax adjustments in December.
Okay.
But this whatever 10 lakhs 30,000 discussion, whatever you have taken,
Yeah.
that is a deduction in your hands for her. That is the criteria of her income for her to be considered as a deduction as a dependent on you. So
Okay.
that is in your case, but not in
Okay.
her case. So
Okay. Okay.
whatever income she has, she has to file the tax return if at all her employer is not doing the year-end adjustment. And the tax liability can be 0 or it can be minimal, but she needs to do the tax return filing.
So is there any penalty for not filing tax return in that case, Veerendra San?
Penalty your interest and taxes only, no? Penalty will be your interest and penalties. Interest is there and penalty is there.
But that would be if he or she is liable to pay tax on that income.
Correct. Yes.
No tax
So,
payable. It's
it was already covered by TDS, and if refund is there is no penalty. But if TDS is 0 and if he has to pay, then interest and penalty will come into picture.
Okay. For a guy who is more like a freelancer, they call it Kojin Jigyo here in Japan.
Correct.
Is it mandatory for him or her to pay the Nenkin?
See, Nenkin, okay, there are two things here. Nenkin is under the pension law of Japan, anybody who is more than, I think, 20 years of age and till 59 years of age, they have to compulsory join the pension system in Japan. That is the law.
No.
So, normally, by these 20 or 21 years age, they normally join the employment and they are part of the employee pension system. But if at all, for any reason, they don't join any employer, so the recommended is that you join the national pension system with the board office. However, there's a difference in the premium amounts. For example, in the case of employee pension, the premium is based on your salary. However, in the case of national pension, it is a flat amount per month, 16,450 something. So logically, if you ask me, yes. But having said that, I mean, you are only, if you contribute for 10 years or more, you are only going to get back the old age pension, which will start as of today from 65 or 60. Yeah. And it will continue till the time you leave in Japan. But given an option of whether I have to join the pension system or not, I will say don't join, because you are not sure about what are the benefits you are going to receive and for how long. So employees who are part of the employer, they are bound to pay. So there is no other option for them. But for this Kojin Jigyo, I mean, it is like you contributing to pension system is like you are safeguarding your retirement life. But if
Yeah.
you are not really interested in safeguarding your retirement life, government will not push you for more. For example, at any point of time, you can only go back and pay the last 2 years back pension premiums, not more than that.
Mhm.
So, if you are not really concerned about your retirement benefits, so government also will not be really concerned. So, I would suggest if you have an option, don't pay because you are not sure about what is the amount you are going to get back in future, even if you pay now. And
Yeah.
in the case of lump sum pension withdrawal, the amount whatever you are going to get back is normally 50% of the I mean, not 50%, 50% of the contribution made by you and 25% of the contribution made by you and your employer in the case of employer pension. So it is not that you are getting back the entire amount. Whatever amount you are paying back, you are only getting a part of it. And
Yeah.
normally, if you see in India, in the case of EPF, that EPF will generate interest of 8% per annum every year on your contribution and employer contribution. But here, you are not able to get your principal itself. So, given an option, I would suggest not to join the national pension system.
Okay. I mean, the same person as, because I think he has seen the this thing and he's sending more messages asking. So now, but still, I have not paid. I'm still getting letters asking me to pay for the default for the Ninkin. So is
Yes.
it okay if I don't pay that?
So it depends on, see, you will, they will be, as a process, they will be keep on sending the reminders. But
Okay.
it depends upon your objective. If you want to stay long term in Japan, better to pay because this is one of the criteria for you to get a PR in Japan.
Oh, okay.
So one of the document they ask you is that to show your pension payment history. So if you don't pay pension in Japan, I mean, you will not get the PR in Japan. So I mean, you can keep ignoring them, but I understand they sometimes come home also to ask you
Okay.
to pay. But
Okay.
you still can ignore that. But they cannot force you to pay. But then it will have other implications.
Understand. Then there is one more
So,
question. Sorry, please go ahead.
sorry, just to clarify for the audience, so Virendra sir, you mentioned about PR. Can it cause any issue in the renewal of the work permit if there is no
The
payment?
work permit means existing visa renewal.
Yeah.
So for existing visa renewal, normally the kaze shomesho and noze shomesho are the documents which are asked, which are a
Okay.
proof of you paying the resident tax.
Right.
And they never ask for the pension payment history. But for the PR, pension payment history is one of the additional document which is asked.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
There
Gauri
is
sir.
one more question that has come. Is it compulsory for an employer to pay Shakai Hoken or Nenkin for his staff?
Yes, it is compulsory, no?
I mean, that's the question that has come. So one more thing. Okay. The next question that has come. Okay. For medical medical expense exemptions, which you said, which is more than 10 man in Japan, any criteria exist? For example, hospitalized room rent will not be covered. Only medical expenses are covered, etc.
As long as you have the receipts issued by the hospital, which details all out the medical expenses, details of medical expenses, this room rent or some operation charges can be covered, but there are some things which are not covered. So if you want to know the details, there's an exhaustive list of permissible items and non-permissible items which are available on the homepage of the National Tax Office. You can go through the document and make a judgment as per that.
Okay, understand. So one more question that has come. My parents are with me for last 9 months. They came on tourist visa and stuck here due to Corona. How can I claim them as my dependents?
So dependent, for example, they cannot be claimed as a overseas dependent staying in Japan. The reason is that they are not on the dependent visa. If they are on a dependent visa, normally you register them with the board office and they will qualify as a dependent within Japan. But in this case, they are on a business tourist visa and they are stuck in Japan for this COVID. So, I mean, the least thing is that you, even though they are physically here, you send the money to their bank accounts in India. on your mother's name and father's name separately and claim them as a dependents. That is the least you can do.
Okay, got it.
So, but Virender San, if they don't transfer to India because they are here, for 9 months, so they can't claim
No, because
without.
if to for currently they are in Japan on a business trip visa only, no, not on the dependent visa. You need to register them with the ward office if they are dependent staying with you in Japan. But for this, they need to have dependent visa. Otherwise, ward office will not register them.
Okay. If I leave Japan after 5 years, can entire pension deduction can be claimed, or is there some limits?
They are whatever amount you can claim back as lump sum pension withdrawal is based upon the rules of the pension office. But as of today, for example, if I contribute for 5 years, 60 months to the employer pension system, and if my average salary during these 5 years is say 5 lakh JPY, so to calculate the lump sum pension withdrawal, the two components are your average monthly salary during this enrollment period multiplied by the multiplier applicable based upon the number of months of contribution, which in this case will be 3.3, the maximum. So 5 lakh into 3.3 is what you are going to get back. But if you want to know information, you can always go through the Ninkin homepage. And this information is available in English in the lump sum pension withdrawal application form. A detailed calculation information is available. But for that, you also need to know how many months you contributed to the pension system and what was your average salary during this period of contribution.
Okay.
So, Gorisan, just to add, our chapter organized detailed webinar on this pension and social insurance part as well.
Okay.
So, yes, in future, audience can join our webinar for detailed understanding of this health insurance and social insurance, everything.
Yeah. Okay, one more question have come, but I think you have answered to it just in case. But let me ask the same question again. That focuses on Furusato Nozai. Supposedly, I pay Juman yen towards Furusato Nozai, but within brackets, he has mentioned my limit is more than that though. Will 10 Juma yen be reduced from my city tax I pay? How do they reimburse that?
No, so first thing is that if you have contributed 2 man yen, which is 20,000.
Juma yen, yeah, Juma yen, 10 man, yeah, 10 man.
10 months. Okay, so the amount of contribution is 100,000.
Yep.
So under the income tax law, the amount of non-deductible donation is 2,000. So balance is 98,000.
Yeah.
So as per my understanding, depending upon, of course, other rules, but 6,000 is the benefit which you are going to get under the income tax law as a deduction, and balance 92,000 will come as a deduction from the resident tax. So that means that you are ending up paying 2,000 by yourself.
Yeah.
However, against this 2,000, that wherever you have contributed, you will be receiving some items in kind something.
Yep.
So if the value of those items is more than 2,000, you still stand to be gained. That means that you are getting free of charge.
Yes, understand.
So
which means, sorry. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so let me put a practical example for this Furusato. So say for example, January to December 2020, you have contributed say Juman or maybe Nijuman, whatever, there is a tax a maximum calculation, for this Furusato Noze depending on your income. So for example, I have paid 200,000 Furusato Noze to various Ken or prefecture in Japan. And we will get the benefit of say for example on an average 20% of this contribution in terms of by getting the return gift from this different prefecture. And there is a website of Furusato Noze, and you can decide where you want to contribute and what you would like to get the return gift. There are multiple gifts, electronics or fruits or drinks, everything. There are many options, right? So against this 200,000 you paid, you will get a refund of this 198,000 in your next year when you file tax return to the tax office. So maybe around, depending upon your income and your tax rate, you would be getting 20 to 30% of your 198,000 from your income tax, and remaining will be deducted from your residence tax.
Okay.
And that would be started from next year, June 21 to May 22.
Okay. So which means my next year's resident tax will be less
Will come
because
Yes,
I
down.
have paid here already.
yes,
And my income tax will also be less. I mean, you said 20 to 30%. That would also be less, is it? Or
that would be
just come
refunded.
back to my account?
Yes. So for this 2020, generally our employer does not accept this furusato. So what we do, we need to file the tax return. Okay, and we need to take all the receipts, whatever we got, certificate, donation certificate from this prefecture, we need to carry to our ward tax office. We need to file tax return there, which is generally 15th February is the due date. Okay, and
Yeah.
yeah, and then we they process the our tax return, and then they send this income tax refund of 20 to 30% in May or June.
Okay. It comes to our account then.
Yes, it comes to
Okay.
our bank account. Yes, yes,
Okay.
and resident tax will be you will be getting refund in your monthly installment of resident for next year.
Okay.
So
Clear, sir.
I would suggest, I would encourage audience to take benefit of this Purusato Nose, and many times we get very good schemes also. There are many multiple options. Even we can combine Rakuten Purusato also, and we get many points. So and
Yeah.
again, it's yeah, good cause to contribute to rural economy.
So do we have for Furusato Nose, do we have any slabs from income perspective that, for example, guys only who has more than, say, for example, 5 million yen per year can only apply for Furusato Nose or something like that?
So
Yes,
there is no minimum
there
limit.
are a couple of limitations.
Yeah, there is a maximum limit, like contribution. Max whatever I have seen, it can be 25 per annum.
Yeah.
So you have to see your income. It is very simple. There are income and spouse and your dependent criteria. The calculator is available online. Some app are also provided in English. So it is, you need to see what is your income and your dependents. Accordingly, you will get the what maximum amount you can contribute
Understand.
for getting the tax benefit. Otherwise, you can contribute like Gojuman also, but
Yeah.
your yes benefit would be limited according to your income.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Understand. Okay. And then one more thing is that come up is, can you please explain about that one stop Tokure? Because this is looks like this is applicable when you do Furusato Nose. So can you explain about that, please?
I do not have much idea about this, but I think I read something like that, that this is like making a one application wherein I think maximum 5 ward officers will be covered on this. That is what I think, but I'm not very clear. But taxation perspective, I think the benefits are same. Only thing is that the administrative process perspective, you if you make a this one stop make an application to this one stop, you need not end up registering with multiple city offices. But I'm not very clear on this one. But this is an
Yeah.
administrative one, not a tax benefit one.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that because I have also read about that. It's not a tax benefit; it's more administrative one. You don't need, once if you do this one-stop one, you don't need to go to the tax office for your year end. So they will do it on your behalf. You just apply it with your my number details. So, but maximum thing that's allowed is only 5. If you are done Furisato Noze to 5 different places maximum, then that is acceptable. If it is more than 5, then you'll have to go separately and then do it.
Correct.
Right, right. So I mentioned about that taking tax receipts through the tax office. That is in case of more than 5 prefecture donation you have made. If you have made up to 5 prefecture, of course you can do multiple donation, 10 Ichiman or Niman, whatever. So then you can take benefit of that one stop. You need to whenever you make the donation, they will send you tax receipt and this one stop tax return. You need to fill up and send back to them. Then they will do the tax. They will inform to respective ward office, prefecture office.
Okay. Then next question that has come is will housing loan get rejected due to having more non-resident dependents?
That depends upon the person who is giving the loan to you. So it can be yes, it can be no. But
Yeah.
yes, so one point is that, for example, if you are applying for a PR, and one point which normally was observed is that if you have many overseas dependents, I am told that PR application is rejected because you have too many dependents to support outside Japan.
Okay.
So that is one of the negative point of having more dependents in the tax return, because the immigration office can any point of time access your income tax return information.
Yeah. And then next question that has come up is, can you please explain the details of Gensen Choshu show tables?
Gensen Choshuyo is basically a tax document which is issued by an employer. So if you see the format, it apart from the employer name and address and your name and address and the date of birth, it contains details such as, for example, gross salary paid and salary after employment deduction and total deductions amount and tax liability, final tax liability. And if you have a spouse, it will say yes, and the name of the spouse and her date of birth. And if you have any other dependents, their names and their information. This is what is normally applicable available in the Gensen Choshu Yo. And this is the document which is submitted by your employer after December, normally by end of January of the next year, to the income tax office and also to the ward office. This is the Bible document based upon which everything is calculated by the ward office for the resident tax. And this all document also is required for you to file the income tax return with the tax office if at all you are doing anything by yourself.
Okay.
But
Another
this is
sorry, go ahead.
a summary of the information which is flowing from your monthly salary data. For example, January to December 2020, whatever salary is paid to you, for example, gross salary or social insurance reductions or the income tax deducted, other than the resident tax and other post-tax deductions, all this summary of the entire year number will be summarized in this document, and this is the document that will be submitted to the government offices.
Okay.
So this is
One
like
interesting.
Form 16, whatever we get in India, salary certificate.
The only difference between Form 16 and this document is that if your salary is less than 20 million and if the year-end adjustment is done, you need not do any tax return filing separately to the tax office. However, if your salary is more than 20 million or if the year-end adjustment is not done, then how you can identify this in the document is that they will, for example, they will mention the gross salary and only the TDS part. So they will not mention the salary of the after the employment deduction or the total deductions amount. They will not mention. And in the below, they will mention in the remarks that year-end adjustment not done.
Okay, understand. One interesting question has come up. I have been working from home since April due to pandemic, and being an employee though, is there any new rules which gives tax benefits on home internet, telephone, home rent, etc.?
But home internet, if you are working for a company as an employee, whatever expenses you are incurring towards home internet or home phone, that your employer should be reimbursing it if at all you are using 100% for official purpose. So that is between you and your employer. And home rent, there is no benefit either with the employer or with the tax office. But if you are staying in a company lease accommodation, anyhow you are getting a benefit.
Yeah. Okay, but another question has come up, which I think you have already explained, but just to claim your parents in India as your dependent, what is the minimum amount I have to remit per person? I think you have already explained that.
I already explained, yes.
Yeah.
So
there is no minimum, there is a maximum. Okay.
There is no minimum, there is no maximum. It depends upon actual necessity. Besides supporting the person, what amount is required. For example,
So
if you
generally it is JPY 400,000, per person people do, right?
it should be, I mean, logical. For example, if I'm supporting for basic livelihood of food, clothing, and shelter in India, if I take the logic of 15,000 rupees per month, if it should be 1,80,000 rupees per annum, which I convert into JPY. If it is 3 lakh JPY, at least I should send 3 lakh JPY. If I send 5,000 JPY and claim the person as a dependent for the entire year, the tax office normally should reject. However, tax office does not have the bandwidth because for example, we are of course talking about India, but in Japan there are other many nationality people also staying in Japan, and depending upon each country and city, the cost of living differs. So there is no database with the tax office which says that this country, this city, this is the average cost of living for each person. So they are bound to approve even if you send 5,000 yen and claim as a dependent.
Got it.
But this claiming one person as a dependent will reduce your income tax and also your resident tax.
Okay. My friend went back to India in 2019 December after staying almost a year in Japan. So he didn't had to pay resident tax for 2019. He is now coming back in December 2020 or January 2021. Will he be asked to pay the resident tax for 2019?
That depends upon whether he has reported to ward office before leaving Japan in 2019 December. If he has reported to ward office, then whatever income he had in 2019, on that he need not pay. But if he has not reported, that means that he is assumed to be in Japan as of 1st January 2020. Then he is bound to pay on the 2019 income. Because when you come to Japan, you go to ward office and register your address. The objective is that you are reporting to ward office that I am staying in so and so area under your jurisdiction. Similarly, when you leave Japan, you need to tell them that I'm going back out of Japan, and in that form they will ask you your address outside Japan also. So it is your reporting requirement. If you don't do that, then you are deemed to be in Japan, and of course resident tax will be payable. Other than that, if you have a family in Japan, then you will be getting on the child allowance also, child education allowance also into your bank account. But you are not in Japan. So then it will be an ethical question.
Yeah. Okay. Well, next question that has come up is: if you have any investment income in India, then is it compulsory to show it in Japan tax filing return? And how does it affect overall tax in Japan, resident tax, income tax, and others, if any?
That depends upon your residency status in Japan. If you are a permanent resident in Japan, then yes, you are bound to declare that income for tax in Japan, and that will impact your income tax and resident tax. Both will go up. So depending upon your residency status, whether that income is required to be reported for tax in Japan or not is to be decided.
So here, let's elaborate. Permanent resident. So though you covered earlier, but permanent resident means who is in Japan, living in Japan for more than 5 years.
In the preceding 10 years.
Huh?
In the preceding 10 years, if he is in Japan from 5 years and above.
Yes, then he is supposed to declare Indian income in Japan. Yeah, and he can get the if there is any tax deduction, withholding tax or TDS in India, he can get the credit of the TDS in Japan tax calculation.
He can get, but tax credit can be either a part or zero. It cannot be in full as per the laws of Japan. Because there are complicated rules, but the rules are such that they will ensure that you either get a minimal tax credit or zero tax credit, not for the entire amount.
Yes. So actually, this is applicable to seniors working in Japan for more than 5 years. And let me tell you that recently, in last 2 to 3 years, we have seen many cases who are getting notices from Japan tax department for not disclosing their Indian income, because nowadays our this FATCA compliance is there in India. So Yeah, as there is a arrangement between Indian and Japan tax government, and of course with other foreign governments, they share their data with each other. And the Japanese government tax department can get that information from Indian banks, Indian tax department, what is like taxable in India, and then they can ask us to pay the tax. If we don't pay tax regularly, then there might be surprise after 2-3 years, and they will ask us to pay with interest, penalty, everything. So better to take care of this thing.
Yeah, it's a very, very important point. Okay. Then one more question that have come up is, I worked as a full-time employee in Tokyo from 14th January 2020 to 28th September 2020. I want to know about my tax on foreign income for fiscal year 2019-20 and fiscal year 20 and 21. Because for both the years, my stay out of India is less than 182 days. I will not have to pay tax on my income from Tokyo. Is the double tax avoidance rule applicable to minimize the tax because I have paid the income tax in Japan?
So yeah.
One quick question to that gentleman, if he can reply us promptly. What was his visa status in Japan from January to this September period?
Sorry, this had come through mail, so I don't think he's online.
So that would be important deciding factor here. Yeah, Veerendra.
But having said that, if he was in Japan from in 2020, from whatever is the period,
Yeah.
what his employer has done in the last month of salary, whether he calculated the final tax liability for 2020 and did the year-end adjustment process or not, is one point which needs to be confirmed. That is from the Japan taxation perspective. But from the Indian taxation perspective, if he is there in India for 182 days and above, he will be considered as a resident.
Oh, sorry, but gentleman has responded now. He says work visa. Might be, I think it should be engineer visa or something. Yeah.
So if he is in, for example, in the financial year of 2020 and 21, if he is there in India for 182 days and above, he will be considered as a resident in India. That means that he needs to offer his global income for tax in India. That means, which also includes some whatever salary income he has earned in Japan from April 2020 onwards. Yeah. So whatever tax he has paid in Japan from this period, that probably he can claim as a tax credit in India when he files his tax return for the 2020-21 in June 2021. Logically.
Okay.
But how will you get a breakup? Because the periods are different. In India, it is April to March, and here it is January to December. That is one point. And second point is that in his case, he is become from April 2020 onwards to September 2020. How he is going to calculate his income tax liability is the point which is a challenging point for either for him or for the tax officer to claim it as a tax credit.
Yeah.
So his employer either need to help him or he need to take some tax consultant help.
Yes, I think the person Nilesh Kore, who is actually watching it live, please talk to your employer about this. Okay. I think that's the main question. Any other questions from the team? I think I have one more question. Last question. I don't at this moment who come. Can we connect with ICAI Japan chapter separately offline to seek any additional guidance that may be needed?
Yes.
Sure. You can connect us anytime on our Facebook chapter page, or even individually with me or Veerendra sir. We will be happy to help you.
Yeah. I think that's the question that has come up till now. Yeah, I think we have covered all the topics. Somewhere repetitive, but still, I think it was quite informative for the users here. So, do we have any more questions? Any others live that they would like to? Yeah, thank you. That's the message. It keeps coming in. So I don't see any more questions here,
Okay.
Veerendra sir.
I think we are half an hour before.
Yeah, but still, yeah, I think well covered. I mean, I think we have most probably now that this is more of an individual taxation. So everyone wants to talk about dependents. I think we have covered that. They want to talk about how to reduce tax. That you have already given the slide. I think your slides were self-explanatory even before the question had come. Because your experience speaks, right? You have been giving this session for many times, and that too on a voluntary basis. So for our fellow Indians, I think this should be of great help.
So
Yeah.
any information you need on taxation in Japan, please make a note. There's a homepage called nta.go.jp.
nta.go.jp, right?
National
National
nta.go.jp. It is
Yeah.
the Kyoku National Tax Office. There, if you on the homepage, the English is there. If you click that, so a lot of information will come in English. You can select for the individual income tax, and there you have the income tax guide. I think currently only 2019 is available, but the 2020 tax guide will be uploaded by them probably after the year end. So you can always refer to this site for any information you need on the individual income tax. The document is in English. It is around a 72 pages document. It contains all the information in English at a broad level, at a detailed level. So
Yeah.
you can always go through that and refer for any queries you have.
Yeah. One more question had come up. Can we get deduction for home fire insurance?
Fire insurance, no.
No. Yeah.
Only earthquake insurance.
Yes.
Because normally in Japan, when you make a contract with a service provider, the fire and earthquake are together.
Together, it's all.
But when you pay the premium together. But when he issue the receipt for the tax benefit receipt, that will be covering only the earthquake insurance.
Yeah.
So fire no. But unless you if you have if it is for your own house, no. But if you have purchased that house and you have leased it out for rental purpose, then you can claim that as a business expense.
Okay. Yeah. So any more questions to the fellow Indians who are actually watching this live? Please feel free to send your questions in this chat. So I think we still have some time to take a couple more questions from your side if you have any. Yeah, I think we are okay. So nothing much. Yeah, many thank you messages have come. So first of all, let's not drag them. So first of all, okay, thank you so much, Veerendra San and as well as Kailash San for spending time almost. We have been discussing about planning this session for quite long, and good that we are doing it at the right time. So I'm so satisfied that we are doing it at particularly at the year end when people are looking for options to reduce the tax, and there are a lot of questions. And I think we have covered at I think all ends. We don't have any open questions at the moment, as you said. So any questions that people may have after this session, yes, feel free to contact Veerendra San or Kailash San over Facebook or in their homepage. ICAI homepage chapter in Japan. You can just contact them. They'll be more than happy to help you out. So thank you so much for your time today. It was really, particularly personally, it was a very knowledgeable session for me because, as you explained, I could give answers to a couple of questions that had come up. So it was really informative. So really thankful to you. And any additional comments from you, Kailash-san or Veerendra-san?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, audience. Gori-san, Balaji-san, Tokyo Tamil Sangam, and everyone. Thank you very much.
Just last point. I think now we are in this November. By this time, probably wherever you are working, your employer would have asked you to submit all the information required. So yes, the documents will be in Japanese because we are in Japan. But apart from the language perspective, try to understand what is the information you are filling up in the documents, and try to compare it with the end result, which will be your Gensen Choshu Yo. So depending upon your information only, he will calculate based upon the tax laws and rules. So you probably it is good for you to understand how your employer has done all this. And once you understand this logic, it will be a cakewalk for you to, plan it going forward, how to do that. So, I mean, I take this opportunity to thank Gauri. Of course, I have never met him, having stayed in probably in the same neighborhood. So
Yeah.
we got connected later. So thank you, Gauri, for all your effort and support in organizing this event. So
Yeah.
our objective is to promote, I mean, share the knowledge whatever we have, and to be helpful to the Indian community, which is one of the objective of I mean, establishing the chapter in Japan. So if at all you need any further support, you can contact us directly, and we will be able to help you.
Sure.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It was a pleasure, Veerendra San, as well. I mean, so happy that it was so informative and well received by our audiences. So let's keep working on it. I mean, anyway, this is just a beginning for us. Let's work together more closely, bring out more informative sessions to our fellow Indians here in Japan. So this is just a beginning. We will try to work very closely with you going forward. Need your support as always.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Bye bye.
Nice.